going to go ahead and start the recording. Um, I'll I'll just start out with a quick background. Prolink has been in business for 34 years. We started out writing software to capture data from CMMs and vision systems. After our many years in the business and in that area, we are clearly the leader in that field. We have support drivers for over 225 different brands, models, and versions of machines throughout the world, collecting data on CMMs and vision systems. So that is, for all intents and purposes, a plug and play capability that we have when it comes to automated machines. Of course, we've also added the capability to capture data from hand tools and PLCs and other devices that send digital data out. We've also developed database management and reporting tools, and we'll talk about those today. Before we actually fire up any of the software, I want to just do a quick single slide that shows the architecture of our software so that as we demo this software, you'll understand what piece of it is and where it fits in the entire architecture. So our first product is called QC Calc Real-Time. It is the core product. There will always be QC Calc Real-Time present when Prolink is installed. It is the main data engine. It is capable of collecting data straight from CMMs and vision systems. It does real-time charting. It does color coding of that charting. It does alarming for out of control and out of spec and trend analysis as well. It also manages the first level of the database storage. QC Calc Real-Time is the core. To that, we add other products, and in the case of hand tools or bench tools, we would add the QC Gauge product, which provides not only a user interface, but a gauge interface to the tools and the user, and it provides the ability to capture that data from those tools, or for that matter, from the keyboard or barcode entry, if that's what's appropriate for that data collection station. The data then flows through QC Calc Real-Time, and all of the things about QC Calc Real-Time that I've just mentioned apply when you're collecting data here. In fact, we bundle these two products together and call it Gauge Station, and that is the terminology we use when we're talking about a manual entry or hand tool gauge entry as opposed to QC Calc Real-Time. There is another module called QC PLC on the data collection side, and this piece of software is designed primarily to connect via TCP/IP Ethernet connection to a PLC in a machine and operate a controller or a robot or something like that that has process information that you're interested in gathering and charting, or even merging together with measurement data for correlation purposes. This is supports several hundred different standard PLCs directly, the Allen Bradleys, the Siemens, the GE Fanucs, and all the popular ones. And then if not directly connected, they are supported through an OPC connection, which is typically a piece of middleware that fits between the PLC and our PLC. Okay, so it doesn't matter how the data comes into the system. It's going to wind up going through QC Calc Real-Time, and then we store that data on a file server someplace on your network. And that data is stored in a file structure. It is a flat file structure, proprietary file structure for this first level of data storage. At that point, there are some analysis tools available. QC Calc SPC provides the ability to do real-time, to do historical statistical analysis, histograms, X-bar charts, capability plots, Pareto analysis, all of those kinds of things are done here. This is typically used by the engineer or the manager who's monitoring that data on an ongoing basis. There is another function. QC Calc SPC can also operate in a remote monitoring mode. So you could be sitting here at your desk, flip it into monitor mode, and look at any one of these copies of QC Calc Real-Time on the shop floor and see the data in real time in the same way that the operator does. So that's another function that it has. Another reporting and analysis tool that we have is SPC Office Buddy. SPC Office Buddy is designed to do two things, to answer two questions that we received over the years many times. Those two questions being, how do you get this data into Excel, and more specifically, how do we get into Excel into my Excel form or report? and that's what SPC Office Buddy does extremely efficiently. And of course, the other question was, how do I get this data into Minitab? It is a world standard, a benchmark that many people use. Although Minitab does not collect data from any instruments of any kind, it is used throughout the world for standardizing statistical calculations. We've created an interface through the SPC Office Buddy that will totally automate the use of Minitab. Somebody can do Minitab reports and not even know how to start Minitab, and SPC Office Buddy will do it all for you. In a larger environment, such as I anticipate you'll be using, we will be moving the data to a Microsoft SQL Server database. That's done by inserting our Enterprise Data Loader module, and this module simply harvests, if you will, all the data that's being collected at the shop floor level, and in near real time, I say near real time, every couple minutes kind of thing, we'll be synchronizing that data up into the SQL Server database. At that point, we utilize a product called Enterprise Report Scheduler, ERS for short, and that allows us to take advantage of all of the advanced data management tools that are in a SQL database. That means that we have much more advanced capability for filtering, sorting, grouping, and reporting on the data using the SQL Server tools that are there. That then allows ERS to do many reports, the same kind of statistical reports we see down here, but done through the SQL, and of course that allows us to combine reports with multiple parts in the same thing or multiple departments, however you would want to do that. And then Enterprise Report Scheduler, the S stands for scheduler, allows you to schedule reports. So if you need reports on last week's data for a Monday morning meeting, you can schedule ERS to run those reports at, say, 3 a.m. on Monday morning, and those reports are done and sitting in your inbox or in a folder as a PDF. ERS also produces dashboards. These update as fast as every 30 seconds. There's a variety of different objects or widgets, as we call them, that you can display that will be linked to various data sets and give you either color-coded lights or meters or traditional statistical type charting. And in addition, the product also produces what we call a full view, which is, if you will, a 30,000-foot top-down view that will allow you to look at even multiple plants and multiple locations, drill into the plant, drill into the part, drill into the data, all the way down through utilizing the tools in the SQL. Now this is kind of where we stopped the last time we all talked. We have about 8 weeks ago just introduced a new product called QC Mobile. And what QC Mobile does is it allows us to leverage all of this power over here in the sorting, filtering, reporting, dashboarding, etc., but in a totally mobile mode using any standard browser, including the browsers that come on tablets and portable cell phones. So it's totally independent, either iOS or Android. And what this allows people to do is to, in a remote and mobile mode, certainly mobile if not remote, be able to access and see the data in near real time on the portable device. Okay. Now, all of this is based on the fact that we will support any of these applications on anything Windows XP Service Pack 3 all the way through Windows 10. Our official position on SQL is 2005 through 14, although I've installed a couple on 2016 and it works just fine. We have a centralized administration tool. This will allow you to set permissions and settings on multiple workstations so that maybe you turn off the function to delete data or something, and that can be set across multiple workstations in a centralized location so that you can control the permissions and the settings. And there's also a Prolink license server as part of the package that's offered, and that provides an easy way to activate and deactivate licenses. In the past, it required that you contact us through our website or link in through the website to activate and deactivate, and now this allows you to do it right on your own PCs locally through your own server. Okay, so does this data flow and the different modules make sense?
Yeah, it does, Gene. Thanks. I have just a couple of quick questions.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think I might have asked something along these lines last time, but I just want to refresh here. So, and kind of put it in context with the expansion of our pilot. So we've got 2 pilots that we're looking at, really at 2 different locations in our shop. So they're not co-located. So when I look on the left of this for the data collection flow, if you will, the gauge station, if you will, the bundle of you know, QC gauge and QC calc. Is that 2 different you know, implementations, if you will, with 2 different, you know, pricing schedules with that, you know, as 2 standalones with 2 standalone hardware sets, I think, or is that, you know, a site license that would then cover multiple, you know, installs like that?
Yeah. Well, first off, these 2 bundled together do install as one package called Gauge Station. It is the 2 modules running together and linked together, but it is the 2, and it's sold as that. It's priced, by the way, exactly the same as real-time is priced when it's on a CMM. So what we do when we sell it as Gauge Station, it's no longer able to read CMMs. It's only able to read QC gauge. So the pricing is the same, and the pricing is based on a license for each physical PC that you install it on.
Okay, great. That's what I thought.
Yep.
That answers that. Then the other question is for the SPC analysis on the right of that off of the data file server. You know, assuming that, you know, your shop floor data collection, you know, Engage Station is being collected and then it's uploading it to this file server. Then let's say for the SPC analysis, not the Office Buddy version of it, let's say that's me, say it's Doug sitting in Troy, and he's going to do some of that analysis. I assume that that's another install in another PC, you know, different than the QC Calc at the Gauge Station.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
All right. So let's do this then. Let's take a look at QC Calc real time. It is the core of this whole system. And I will open up here a little module that, as you can see, is called Training CMM. We use this in demonstrations, and we do it just for the purposes of creating data so that we can quickly create data and show some of the capabilities and features without having to have you wait around for me to watch me key things in. So this is just a simulator. It's a demo tool or a training tool. And I'm going to make believe that I've just written a part for my CMM in this case called UTC. And I'm going to say that there's going to be 35 features on it. We can support in our QC Calc real-time up to 3,000 features per part. So most of the parts that you do, I think, will fall within that 3,000 or less. We also have the ability to capture traceability information. I think this will be very important because if I'm not mistaken, most of your parts are serialized. Is that true? Hello?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, they carry unique serialization for each part.
Yep, that's what I thought.
It
okay.
Wouldn't be serialized per batch, per se.
Right. If it's per part, then, you know, that's the kind of thing that we do with traceability factors. My little demonstrator has the ability to do one numeric factor and one text factor, and the actual software has the ability to do 30 numeric fields and 30 text fields for a grand total of 60. So no matter how much you need to keep track of serial number, lot number, batch number, operator, machine, fixture, tool, there's plenty of spaces to capture all that data if you need to. Okay, so one of the really unique things about QC Calc real-time and running on a CMM is there is absolutely zero setup. Once you've installed the software and written a program in your CMM, when you export the data, that is, you measure a part on your CMM and check the checkbox in the software that says when you're done measuring, export out a file, we automatically pick that up and will automatically create a part program without any setup at all. So if I click the inspect button now, it will automatically create a brand new part program. It'll be called UTC, as you see right up here, and you'll notice that it has 35 features that it's created. It started with my randomly generated numbers. It started plotting a point for each of the 35 every time I measure a part. And we'll just measure 6 or 7 parts here just to have some data come in and you can see what's going on. And one more maybe, or one more. There we go. So this one is yellow. These two are yellow. You saw a red one go by. Let's find out what that's about. I'm going to double click and zoom in on this particular chart. It happens to be feature 27. The feature names show up in these charts as they exactly exist in your CMM program. So if it's, whole location 16, or if it's length, overall length, or whatever you call it in the CMM program, it shows up here exactly the same. We're plotting this on a chart that's, this particular one is showing upper and lower spec limits and upper and lower control limits. These control limits are based on a percentage of the spec. They can also be done based on the actual calculated control limits using the standard formulas, as I just redid there. I'll uncalculate them again. You can manually enter control limits. You can also have automatically calculated control limits that stop after so many subgroups and lock those in going forward, which is all the standard practice kind of stuff that's done. This background, of course, is yellow because this last point dropped below the lower control limit. That's a warning. The ones that you saw go by that are red are the ones that drop by past the spec limit. I'm also choosing to display a running CPK calculation. Every time the point comes in, it calculates a new CPK here. And that's only one of a number of calculations that I can choose to display there, the average, the different types of range, the sigma, etc. You can do a lot of different things there. You can also look at a summary of multiple statistics at another place that I'll show you shortly. Okay, so you also have the ability, now that I'm in this zoomed in, I can now click the arrow down at the bottom and I can just scroll through them one at a time, or I can double click and go back to the multiple chart display. I'm going to go in here right now. I'm going to change the machine number, and we're going to do that so that we'll be able to demonstrate some filtering tools. And then when we get to the hand tool measuring, we'll talk a little bit about how we're going to use serial numbers to align parts that are measured at different stations. You'll notice now that I've got a number of points here, about 18 points. I could go in here to the point properties window, and that opens up a chart here that lets me hover over any one of the points on a chart. There's one, for example, that was out of spec. You'll notice that the value in the table is red text because it's out of spec. It also shows the machine number and the operator. If we go over here, we see there's machine 2 operating right there. Okay. You can also right-click on points and do some other things. You can assign a cause. So if you wanted to keep an assignable cause and corrective action for a problem that took place, I just assigned a cause to that, and you'll see that it's turned the point blue. And when I hover over it, it shows me that cause in a little window. I can put a corrective action in there as well, replace the broken tool, and now both of those features are shown. I also have the ability to delete a point. Maybe I want to get rid of this one because I decided it was an anomaly and there was a mistake made in the CMM. So I can delete that point, and you'll notice it turned gold, and that means it's no longer used in calculations or reporting or analysis of any kind. I, in this case, deleted that one point for that one feature. I could have also deleted the entire part or record, and so now you'll see there's a gold dot for the 5th reading in each chart. In addition, you can also add freeform notes. Maybe I'd want to put a note on this point and just say this was a burr, and I can assign it just to that one point. And now again, I get a blue dot here. If I open the notes viewing window and hover over that blue dot, you'll see it says this was a burr. A lot of different things you can do there. Probably the final thing I'll mention there is that you can right click and you can do a remeasure the record. This is if you happen to, put a part on the CMM and forget to clamp it in the fixture, and you come back a minute later after you thought everything was fine and everything is turned red, and you realize that that particular measurement is not valid. You can click on the remeasure the record here, and then the next reading comes in will replace that one instead of be added on, so you don't have to delete it that way. You can also look at the plot properties. I just opened up another window by clicking a button up there. and this will show you the specs and the control limits and the nominals and tolerances for each one of the features as I hover over the window. As I mentioned before, there's also a stat summary available. I opened up this quick stats box and we see a stat summary, and that applies to whatever box, whatever chart I hover over here. And there's another feature of this one is, maybe this particular part or this particular feature had some problems initially, but then it looks like it's stabilized here. I can click and drag on that, and it will recalculate the stats based on that set of data instead of all the data that's shown in that chart. And I can bring those selected points to any of the other features if I want. There's another function that's built in here that is sometimes useful, and that is when you're changing over tooling or you're debugging a program on the CMM, you may want to do some tryout data. And so we have the ability to do a tryout mode. I just turned it on, the switch there. And when I measure the next part, because it's in tryout mode, it will actually create a new database that's called the UTC tryout database. And now every point that I check there while I'm debugging my program or checking out a tool change is going to go in that particular one. When I turn tryout mode off and measure another production part, it just automatically switches back to the charts that we were using before. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
In addition, you've seen the yellow and the red go by. We also have the ability to track trend analysis. So I'm just going to turn on a simple trend here. We can do single point alarms and instability tests, CPK and CP tests. I'm going to say let's look for consecutive points decreasing or increasing. In the statistics world, that's typically 6. I'll set it at 3 so I make sure I get an alarm here someplace. And of course, there's other things that are statistically used here in the mixtures and stratifications and drifts. But let's just use this one for now, the 3 points going uphill or downhill, and I'll turn on that detection tool. And then right away, you'll see that those particular features all have 3 points, last 3 points either going uphill or downhill based on the mathematical analysis. Okay. Now there's one other set of things that you can do here also is you can turn on pre-control, and pre-control turns on zones like this, and we'll zoom in so you can see them. This is a green zone in the middle, which is I've got set at 50%. You can set it anywhere you want, and it's 100% the yellow zone out to the specs. In addition, if you don't want to use that, you can also display sigma zones. So I could say, show me the 1, 2, and 3 sigma zones in a color band. And I would see the sigma zones like this, plus and minus 1 sigma, 2 sigma, 3 sigma. All of this kind of stuff, of course, is totally tunable, and what fits your particular scenario and your particular needs in your factory. They can all be turned on or off as needed. And as I mentioned before, there's an administrative tools option. So the administrative tools option is where I can change these settings and then lock them down. So for example, we use user groups. It's password protected here. I think I fat-fingered that one. And now I see that I have 2 other user groups, one of them called production. If I turn on the production user group, it immediately changes some things. Number 1, put trend detection on. That's already set. And it also did some other things. If I right-click here and try to delete a point, well, that's been disabled here. There's other features that have been disabled, like in the file menu, I can't exit the program by mistake anymore, or I can't merge or purge files. So the idea behind this is not only can you control and lock down the settings or the permissions, but you can also have a central location where you turn all these settings on, and then that applies to all the stations that are in that particular user group based on the setting. That makes sense?
Yep.
We'll come back out of this so that I can have all my functionality again. Okay. So pretty good look at how this works as far as collecting and displaying data. Now we want to talk a little bit about how we might be filtering data. So filtering data can happen by dimension. So I'm going to filter dimensions. We have 35 dimensions here, but maybe I want the operator to focus on some criticals. So I'm just going to make this up here as I go, and I'm going to pick maybe 6 criticals. And now show you that those are the ones that are displayed. All the rest are still being collected in the background, but this would allow it to be much easier to focus on the ones that are maybe troublesome or otherwise. You can also say, show me only out of spec, or only out of control, or only in control. We don't happen to have any out of spec or out of control at the moment. You can also say search for, you can also say search for a particular text. So maybe you wanted all the ODs or all the IDs. You could search for that word in the feature description. Now mine are all feature 1, 2, 3, so I'll just say, show me all the 3s, and we'll see 3, 13, 23, 30, and so on all the way through 35. So a variety of ways to filter the data from a dimension standpoint. And then also being able to filter the data from a record standpoint. You remember I was keeping track of the machine number. Well, this would allow me to create a filter as I've done here and say, well, show me only machine 2 data. And that quickly it filters just machine 2 data. Now this would become very, very useful with any of your parts that have serial numbers, because you could then capture that serial number as the data is captured along with the measurement, and then at any time you could go back and pull up just one serial number or a range of serial numbers, or a combination of show me all of the serial numbers between such and such and such and such that took place in the month of March. All of those kinds of filters can easily be created. And I'll go back to showing all again.
Gene, on this view, do all the sample features here have the same tolerances, engineering spec limits?
Mm-hmm.
They do. Okay.
When you say do all the features, you mean does feature 1 and feature 2 have the same?
Yeah.
No, not really. If we look at those plot properties again, you'll notice that that one has a nominal of 1.5 inches with a plus or minus of 10 thousandths. This one has a 2.5, this one a 3.5. Yep. These are just made up data, of course, but yep, they are different physical nominals. They happen to have the same tolerances, that's all.
Same tolerance, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looked like the engineering tolerances were the same.
Yeah, but that data comes in from the CMM in this case, or from the data collection spec plan in QC Gauge. So that data comes in whatever it really is. We don't make those up. We take it based on what comes from with the data.
All right. Okay. So my question is, if you actually have features with different tolerances, which would be common, my assumption is we would see it on a multi-view like this. Is there a way, the second part of that is there a way to, on the same machine, do a view where you put multiple features on one plot, but show the difference between, chart the difference to the tolerance, even though the tolerances are different?
Multiple features on one chart. What we can do, I don't have a data set here to display it, but what we can do is do a scatter chart, or not a scatter chart, it's going to be a whisker chart that would plot one feature here and one feature here with a line between them to show the deviation between them. But each chart has its own unique tolerance limits. So that one chart could show 2 different parts, but it could not show 2 different tolerance limits. That's
okay.
That's a limitation.
Yeah. Got it. And then, so in the total number of features that you said earlier, did they all appear on a single view like this, or?
Well, as you might expect, let's just go to one that has 200, it gets a little crowded.
Right.
It makes it a lot real nice that you can just double click and zoom in on any one of those or scroll through them. We limit the single screen display to 500, and then you scroll to another screen with another 500.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, certainly 500 is more than you could visualize, but just wanted to understand that capability or that feature. Thanks.
One other thing that is important that I should mention, I assume you may have some true positions that you measure. And that is, here's a set of data that came from CMM. You'll note that it has a X position of the hole number 2, a Y position, it has a true position and a diameter. And we can do a consolidated display like this which is showing the deviation of true position, but it's also got a target chart down here that shows the X and Y relative deviation, so that this last red dot is the last point. That's that same last point up there. And it's very clear and very easy to understand this is going negative X and positive Y. And
Sure.
we find this to be very useful because, after all, when you tell the guy setting the machine up that the true position is off, first question is always which direction, right? So, and then,
So what does that diameter, does that represent the tolerance or the control limit, or what is that?
That represents the diameter represents the tolerance, the line that you're getting to here. We also plot, by the way, on this chart, you'll see this slightly undulating red line up here. This is the bonus tolerance that's calculated as well.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay.
That's a nice graphic of the true position of where you're running.
It is. This is very popular with folks who do that kind of stuff. Yeah. Okay.
I've never seen that before. That's interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so this is back to the demo set of UTC data that we were doing. Just a couple things real quickly here. There are some reports that we can print out of here. This is not a charting tool or an analysis tool, but for example, I could do a first article, and there's a basic template to do the first article. It shows the part name, it shows the traceability information, the operator machine in this case, and feature names, the nominals, tolerances, deviation. There's also several other reports. There's a raw data report that you can do with statistics. I think this one is a popular report. Shows a column for each feature, shows the nominal tolerances, shows the stats calculation based on the data collected. Out of spec is always red. It shows, in this one, date and time. It could also show serial number in another column here if you wanted it to. So that could be very useful, and you just step through the rest of the data here, of course. One other one that is quite popular is one that allows you to bring in a graphic and then have call-out lines. I guess we could use this. So you could bring, this is just an image that I brought in. It could have been a bitmap, or any Windows legal object can come in here. And then I've got call-out lines for various features. And if I zoom in, I can see that each feature has its own little run chart and the stats that go along with it. So just a handy report that's out there. The product does have a built-in Gauge R&R, so you can flip it into Gauge R&R mode. It will create a new separate database file with the R&R. It'll let you do any number of parts, trials, and operators you want, and whether you do them either in a specific order or in a random data collection order by your choosing. And then when you're done with it, you simply ask for the report, and it gives you the standard report, either a summary report or a report by each feature. It will do range and average method, or ANOVA method, or the Minitab method. All of those are all built in. Okay.
Very good.
Exporting of the data is also possible here. You can export to, obviously, Excel, Access, text files, ASCII text files, and quite honestly, all of our competitors. Very few of our competitors come close with doing CMMs the way we do, and so we've kind of become the de facto on that, and we export to lots of other competitors that do the SPC calculations. Both exporting and reporting can be set up to run automatically. So here on automatic reporting, for example, I could choose any report, could choose any export as well. I could choose what range of records, that is all available, or newest records in the file, or since the last report, however you want to do it. I could report to a printer, I could report to a file, which then lets me create my report as either a PDF, an Excel, or a bitmap, or other variants. And then I can send that via email if I choose to. And I can cause that report to run at various frequencies. Every time a display fills, keep asking me, do you want me to report now or not? Every N number of records, or you could put a lot size in at the beginning when you start to run a lot, and it would then report at the end of the lot, or only when there's an out of control or only out of specification. So a lot of different options to trigger automatic reporting and exporting. Okay. So that kind of completes the summary of real time, and if you don't have any other questions, I'm going to go in and look at the manual data collection tool. So this would be, now we're going to look at gauge station operating. So I'll open up QC gauge and display that particular option. You'll notice that we have tabs and buttons. These are how the operator would choose the job that they want. Or you could also do it with an Explorer view, and the Explorer has a dynamic search, so once you start typing, limits the qualified part files that could work there. Or if you had barcodes on your paperwork traveling through the shop, you could have a barcode launch, and it would launch the job. All of them do the same thing. When I click on this button, it's going to launch a data collection screen. It, in this case, popped up a warning message, totally optional. If you don't want to see that, you don't have to. And you can customize it to say whatever you want. I've got some customers that use it extensively to list the gauges needed, for example. But lots of uses for that. It's now brought up a screen that's asking me to measure the features here. First, it's asking me for an operator name. I'm doing a drop down there. A lot number, I'm doing a manual entry. Either one of those or both of those could have been barcode entry. And again, by the way, I'm doing 2 here for simplicity, but you could have 30 text and 30 numeric fields if you wanted to. As soon as I enter the first field, the OD that needs to be measured, I'm displaying a picture. I can zoom on that picture if I choose to give the operator instructions, some other written instructions. I have an electronic gauge hooked up here. I'm going to push the button on the gauge, and in comes the reading. It's green because it's in spec. Automatically steps to the next feature, which is ID. You notice you have a new picture. I'm going to measure the ID now. I also wanted to know what the theoretical wall thickness between that ID and OD was, so I had it calculate that for me. Very, very powerful calculation engine built in behind it, and you can do all kinds of calculations that you might need. You can also link external documents here, so any documents that are on your server somewhere that you want to, on your server, or for that matter in the cloud or on an internet-based system, you can deliver those things. Like here's a print, not the print for this part obviously, but a print, a PDF print. You could deliver a video, instructional video to the operator to show them how to do the job. You could deliver any type of a document. This happens to be a Word document saved as a PDF, process control sheet, or as I said, if you have a cloud-based system that's managing your documents, I've just got it linked to our website, but that directly went to the website via a link right inside QC Gauge here. Okay. Ready to measure the last feature here. I just made a mistake, pushed the button on the gauge before I actually had a part in it. It's saying, yeah, you're measuring 594, the nominal is 500. I'm only expecting things to be reasonable in this range, and it says that it's outside reasonable limits. Yes or no? And I'm going to say, no, I don't want that. I'll come back to a reasonable reading here, but it will be out of spec, in which case it turned red. I can, just like in QC Calc Real-Time, put in assignable cause and corrective action. I can add notes in the same way that I did over there as well. All of those kind of functions are integrated between the 2 modules as they're installed and running together. I've got permissions set so that I can go back and correct the bad reading, although you could have locked that out if you wanted to. When you're done with this part, you simply hit the finish button and you'll notice the points just plotted here in QC Calc Real-Time. Everything that we already discussed in QC Calc Real-Time in a CMM environment exists here running in QC Calc Real-Time in the gauge station installation. Okay. You can do some other things here interesting. Maybe you measure all features on the first part and then you drop back to only criticals. You can set up different inspection groups here. That's one option. I could set it so that that happens automatically after X number of good parts. It drops back, measure one critical feature out of spec, and it will expand out to all features again. Or I could set it up so that if I had 3 parts I'm measuring, I could do all features on part 1 and only criticals on 2 and 3. Or maybe I wanted to go through a sequence. I had 9 features, but I only going to measure them every third part. So I'll take 3 of them and measure them on this part, and then the next part I'll measure 3 different, the next part 3 different, and then the following part back to the first 3 again. So there's a variety of things you can do with how the data is collected, various different ways. Okay, this makes sense. How it's done. Pretty straightforward and easy. You can create these part spec plans in a wizard. I'll just step through it in the edit mode here. You name the part. This is where you assign the gauge. It's just a simple COM port, and we support just as many hand gauges as we do on the CMM side. We support them all. The factors, as you saw going in there, where we put in a lot number, and I also had a operator in there. And this is where I created the drop-down list. This is all part of the setup of the system.
Gene, if we use the wireless gauges, is there any type of a configuration or protocol that you particularly think is necessary?
Yes, in fact, the demonstration that I just did with the gauge reading was with a wireless transmitter.
Okay.
So we support them all. I recommend MicroRidge because it's not dependent on any brand of gauge. It works with all different brands of gauges, and frankly, our experience with MicroRidge is it's extremely simple to set up, and it just works, solid as a rock. Some of the other ones require software to be running in the background, and if somebody accidentally shuts the software in the background, different software than our software, then of course it stops working. So there's some complications there, but they all work, and we support them all.
That was MicroRidge, MicroRidge.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
MicroRidge.com. You'll see them. They're a company out in Oregon, and they, like I said, all they do is gauge interfacing, both wired and wireless. And so it's to their advantage to be compatible with as many different brands as possible, and that then gives you total flexibility on what gauge you use on what application. If you start down one brand of wireless system that's made by a gauge manufacturer, then you're kind of stuck with that whatever that gauge manufacturer offers in gauges. Anyway, this also is where you would set up each feature, OD, and then this is where I tell it what gauge I'm going to read, whether it's bilateral, single-sided, or pass-fail, the nominals and tolerances, number of decimal places. This is where I would go out and attach my pictures, my notes, etc. You do that for each one of the features, and it's set up. Decide what collection order is. What do I want to collect in what order? Do I want to do only one part at a time, or any number of parts at a time, or do I want it to be variable based on the lot size or something, or do I want to look up based on the ASQ Z1.4 AQL level table? So all of that stuff is determining how many parts you're going to measure. Process of inspection, if you are measuring multiple parts, it's nice to be able to choose whether you do all the features on one part, then the next part, or the same feature on each part, and then the next feature. That's kind of an ergonomic thing. And then how do I want to lay the screen out, vertically or horizontally? That's also done. This determines how it communicates back with QC Calc real-time. And these are the inspection groups. You noted that I pulled up an inspection group that only had overall length and OD. This is where I created it, just using the arrows to pick the ones that I wanted in the reduced inspection group, criticals group. And then here is where you decide how it's going to happen, either based on parts within a session, the defect rate. I said one good part here, it'll drop back to criticals, my user selection, or the sequencing. So all different methods to utilize the inspection groups. This is the instructions that can pop up at the beginning. I had it check marked so that they did pop up. These are the external documents that I linked to. This is another simple thing. You just browse out to where that document is, or you enter in the URL if it's in a web or cloud-based system. Give it a name, and then it's in the list when you run the job. Here you notice is the URL I used to get to our website. Shortcut button. You remember I launched the job with a shortcut button. I enabled it. I said which tab it was going to be on. I browsed out, got a picture, and then I gave it a name. Very simple. If you choose to launch the job with a barcode, this is where you put the barcode string in. and that's it. Now, there are some other ways that you can create this spec plan other than walking through this wizard that we've just looked at. You can create a spec plan from importing them. If you have all your part files and features in a method where you could export it out to Excel, you could easily rearrange it, and then we can import it in to create this. So you wouldn't have to create all the spec features and nominals and tolerances. It would just import them in. And if you happen to use either Discus or Inspection Expert, which are two programs that are used to balloon prints and create first article reports, we can take the output from both of those and create spec plans automatically. So some ways to speed that process if necessary. Now, one other thing that I wanted to talk to you about specifically, because of the nature of serial numbers and things that you do, we have the ability, if you measure some features at one operation, other features at another operation, but you want to join them together, you can do that fairly easily. I'm going to open this part called Shaft Op 10, and it's looking for these three features. I'll give it an operator name, but I'm going to give it a serial number, and I'm going to say, to make sure it's unique, I'll say 6281. And then I'm going to just put in some readings here, 6.005 and 1.005, and this one is 1.998, etc. And when I run that and hit the finish button, you'll notice that let's see what's going on here. Shaft, and did we get, this will teach me. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Yeah, I just didn't see it plot. Okay, no problem. So if I hover over the point here, you'll see in the plot properties that it was this 628 is today, and the serial number is 6281. I could put in another one, 6282, and I'll just put in the numbers real quickly here. 2, and then I could also put in another one, 6283 serial number, and I'll just put again the numbers real quickly, put them in, and they're plotted. Now, if I show all features by just going to my dimension filter here and show all features, you'll notice that those 3 points that I just put in are here for overall length, turn diameter 2. But there is a grind diameter and a grind diameter 2, and what I have is placeholders here, gold dots, because we haven't got to Op 20 yet to do that. And I'd like to be able to have all of this data in one file. So what I can now do is I'm going to make believe the parts have just been moved over to Op 20, and a different operator opens this spec plan. And this spec plan, of course, has the features for the grind diameter 1 and 2. It's showing only those two at this time. And you could, by the way, if I wanted to, I could have it come up and show all 5 features, or I could just have it show the ones that are appropriate for this particular operation. So again, we'll pick an operator. It's be a different operator, of course, and we'll put in a serial number, but he didn't pick up the parts in the same order. It was actually serial number 3 that he did there. And so I'm going to put that one in and this one in. And I guess I got that one out of control a little bit, so I'm going to go fix it. Okay, and then I hit finish. What you'll notice is the point that plotted is the one that matches up with serial number 3. If I go back here, you'll see that it found the serial number and matched it up with that. And if I again measure serial number 6281, 1 and 2, you will see that it matches up now with the second point. So now we've still only got, or the first point, excuse me, and then we've only got the second point to do. So 6282 and 1.005 and 2.003, and in it goes. And of course, we see them all, and it matched those up exactly. So in your scenario where I suspect you may have different operations doing different machining processes and inspections on the same parts, you can utilize this, what we call multi-source matching function. I think pretty useful for you so that you could see automatically it would match up the data based on a serial number. That's something you see that might be of value?
Yeah, if we're looking at, a particular serial number part, we want to see a report and see, all the features on it, right?
Yeah, yep.
We'll be able to pull that together, right?
Right, exactly. And this allows you to put the data all in one data file all together, and it doesn't matter if some of the features were measured on CMM and some were measured out at op10 and some were measured at op20. As long as the serial number is entered when they measure that part, all the data will line up and match up in the one database for that one part, all features. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, any questions about QC Gauge?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, I don't. I mean, it looks very functional, very applicable for what we're doing. So.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. The user. I was going to just comment. Yeah, the user interface capabilities that you've got, pre-programmed in are nice.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Well, let's take a look down at a little bit of the advanced reporting tools here. I'm launching QC Calc SPC. This is the one that, let's just jump back to the architecture here real quick. That's this product over here. So we're going to look at this, and then we're going to look at this one here. Okay. So this is QC Calc SPC. It displays the data by default in spreadsheet format, although you can say to it, I want to see it so that it looks like the data on real time. It's an option. The filtering tools are here as well. So let's go back and just grab the UTC part because we know what we were using there as far as factors and things. So we can apply filters here, and I can say, well, give me that same selection of the 6 criticals that I did over in real time, because we share these filters. And then, gee, I only want to look at machine 1, so I can apply, again, that machine filter and say machine 1, or serial number, whatever it might be. And then at that point, you can run any of these statistical reports that you might need to do. An individual moving range chart. Let's do a histogram. Everybody likes to see that. There's my selected 6 critical characteristics, and there's the histogram, the full stats analysis per part, per feature, excuse me. And of course, this can also be printed, and it can be printed multiple charts per page if you choose to, or one complete chart per page, depending on how many trees you want to cut down, kind of thing. It also has the ability to do grouping. This is kind of an interesting tool. Suppose you've got several parts that are similar and you want to look at, I'll do this demo one here. You want to look at these because these two parts have similar features. You see this part AB body and A body. This one has a top OD and this one has a top OD. Well, it happens to be the same exact dimension. I want to look at it comparatively between the two parts. So I can very, very easily come up here and say, run me a report. Let's do that histogram again. But show me from A body just top OD like that, and then from BAB body, show me just top OD. So there's the identical features on 2 different part numbers, and I'm going to combine them into one report, this one being the A body, and if I go next here, this will be the AB body. And that could wind up on one sheet of paper comparing a similar feature across 2 different part numbers if you chose to. Kind of an interesting capability that you can do there. We'll go back to UTC again. And we're going to open it back up to all features, and we're going to show all parts, and I guess we're going to show all features and all parts. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it over to the display mode. So let's do a little simulation here. This is now on my desk, but so there's my desk here. This big chart is what's going on the floor. If I go up here to Tools in SPC, and enable monitoring, this is now watching in real time for everything that's going on this part on the shop floor. So if I measure another part out here, it's going to first switch back to that chart on the shop floor, update it, and then a second later you saw it updated the same chart here on your desk. Now, this is one of the scenarios you can think about using this at, is that I want to look at what's going on the shop floor from my desk. But there's some other scenarios. We have customers that use this feature where they're measuring parts in the CMM room and they want the data to get back out to the shop floor as quickly as possible. Well, if you use this monitor on the shop floor to enable monitoring of the CMM, but on the shop floor, operators on the shop floor, managers on the shop floor can see immediately as soon as the measurement is finished on the CMM that it's done and what the status is. We also have people who put large screens up on the shop floor. You can do, as we've already displayed, grouping, so you can have multiple parts open at once. You can actually open this monitoring screen in such a manner that has multiple windows, and different windows would have different parts or different departments or however you would want to do it. And it could show, on a 50 or 60-inch screen, the overall status of an entire area or a production line or something like that. Okay. Any questions about this guy?
I don't think so. Any other statistical analysis tools that need to be brought out here or shown?
Yeah, I think we need to.
Charts and graphs and
yeah.
capabilities.
I think we have to also take a look at SPC Office Buddy.
Yeah.
And that has some nice capabilities from both reports and charting. Let's suppose that I have, and this I just opened up Excel, that I have an Excel form that has to be filled out. And somebody has to sit down with a report and key in the numbers. And I don't want to do that. I want to automate that because after all, I'm electronically collecting, or at least collecting the data in software in the production area. I want to have my reports automated, but I need this specific report because it's the standard in our shop, or it's required by a customer, who knows, whatever it might be. So SPC Office Buddy, I can put, and I've got a different part up here. Let's just, let's go get your UTC part again here. All features, and I'll go ahead and apply the filter again just down to these 6 so that we don't have to watch it churning through all this stuff. But that report that I just brought up and showed you is a 5-piece first article. So there are my first 5 pieces. Now, you can have as many different Excel forms as you want. All of these that I'm scrolling through in this list are different Excel layouts. And there's the one that I just showed you. If I select that and say run it, and run it against these 5 pieces here, as you see, it immediately populates that in the same format that we asked it to. You see it brought the part number in, and it brought the features I had selected. This one's out of spec. This is conditional formatting in the actual spreadsheet. It's not coming from our software. So you can do anything you want to do in Excel. Conditional formatting, layouts of any kind, use whatever you want or need to do in Excel, and we can populate it automatically and that quickly using Buddy. Now, how does that work? Well, it's really quite simple. We start a job, and we call it, give it a name, and then I brought in a template, and all this was a simple Excel spreadsheet with this one change. And as you'll notice, every place I filled in data, there is a square bracketed word, like part name goes here, feature labels go here. They're all surrounded by square brackets. That's what Buddy looks for, is square brackets, to be able to go and find the spot on the Excel spreadsheet and put the data in. That's all there is to it. You do that one time on your Excel form. You then decide where you want it to be saved, where the Excel file is going to be saved, what you want to name it. Here you notice that the name can be customized. I named it Sample Report Excel, and then I put text vector 1, current date, current time after it as well. You just pick from a list and customize the name. So that way you can ensure that it's a unique name. Do you want to look at it while it's filling it in like we just did? Do you want to save it after the job is done? You can have it all happen in the background and you don't even see it. Do I want to put all the data on one sheet or do I want to copy the first sheet's template onto subsequent sheets and have a separate sheet for each feature? There's some reasons to do that, and I'll show you an example in a minute. So you can do those things. And this is the screen that is the magic. Once you come to this screen the first time around and click on the search button, it will find every square bracketed tag and it will match it up with the appropriate database field from our database. And if you make a mistake and don't type something in right, you can always double click here and get the entire list of database fields that you can grab and line it up properly if you want to. You decide if you're going to email your Excel sheet. You decide if you want to clean up the unused tags, which I always do. And that's it. Once you've done that, I can grab any data file, apply the filter to the features and the factors that I need, and say shove that data into that Excel spreadsheet, and boom, it just does it, just like that. Now, do you guys use Minitab at all?
Yeah, we do use some.
Well,
and we do training with Minitab as well.
okay.
You know, I think some of the preference is to not have to export and do that. So it's probably going to be more limited. But you know, if the buddy has the capabilities, and I think it does. I think last time we saw it, there's a version of a 6-pack and stuff in there.
Right. So there's a couple ways you can do that. So let's just do that. Let's suppose I want to run this data into a 6-pack. Well, I have Minitab installed on this PC, and I have Buddy linked to Minitab. So all of these stats are in fact reports and stats being calculated in Minitab. So if I choose 6-pack and say run all those records that are displayed, it launches Minitab, it drops the data in, including the anomalies and tolerances, and it runs the 6-packs. So very, very efficiently and quickly and easily. I mean, that was a 10-minute job minimum if you're going to do it by hand with Minitab.
Right. I think you have your own version of that, right?
And we do. But well, let's do that. Let's flip over to that. I'll show you the combination here. We can do Prolink charting. Just changes the setting.
And I just forgot whether it was in Buddy or whether it was in Calc or not.
So right, exactly. And then we can do this. I'm going to say select 10 parts. And I've got another Excel report here that uses either Minitab or our own internal graphics. This one will use our internal because I just changed the setting. And so what this is going to do is going to crunch the numbers on 6-packs using our tool. Then it's going to open Excel, and it's going to drop those in to Excel. And remember I said before, you might want a separate sheet for each feature. Well, this is what it does when you need space for graphics. Now this could be Minitab graphics as well. If I still had it set to Minitab, it would have run out to Minitab, grabbed those Minitab graphics, brought Minitab graphics back in here, and dropped them into our Excel spreadsheet. Okay? Alrighty. Any questions about this at all?
Nope.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, we're going to wrap up by looking at the last two products, which are the the SQL Server products up here, ERS and QC Mobile. All of the data that we've been fooling around with here, this is ERS. I'm looking at the data display screen here, and if I were to type in UTC here, well, if I were to refresh my screen and type in UTC, you'll see there's the data that we were collecting earlier during the demo, all the same data. All the reporting tools, the standard reporting and filtering tools are here. You could do a machine 1 selection or a machine 2, just like we did in real time, Buddy and SPC. You can do any of those kind of filtering functions. But here we have some more powerful filtering functions. You can filter across the entire database if you want to. I could say, show me everything that's been collected from 7 a.m. yesterday to 7 a.m. today. and looks like nothing fell into that criteria. And I think that's probably right because we didn't collect anything until, I didn't collect anything until this demo. But it would bring up those data. Let's see, I think I've got to show me everything that was collected last month. There we go. And now we've got all the data, all the different parts, all the different features that were done last month. Or maybe I need to see all the parts that have a half-inch hole in them because I just discovered I've got problems with half-inch drills. I can create a filter that says go across the whole database, find every part name and every feature that has a nominal of half-inch. And there they are. So very, very powerful grouping and selecting of the data almost any way that you would want to slice it and dice it. Has the same analysis tools built in that SPC does. And again, if we just go to your UTC part here, we will see all the features. I can say, gee, I only want those 4 features. And any one of these, well, let's just look at a histogram again. And bam, there's the data for the first feature, the second feature, the third feature, the fourth feature, etc. I might say, this is a little strange looking here. Click here, there's the data. What was this point here? And there's, well, Gene was the operator on machine 2. So you can drill into the data very, very quickly and easily. You can also do some other interesting things, like you can compare the performance of one feature to another. I did a floating bar. I normalized the data, so I plotted it all plus or minus 100% of the spec, regardless of what that number is. And you see that feature 1 is obviously quite dispersed, and it's running high. This one is fairly good. This one's fairly good. This one's got probably too much dispersion, although it's still within specification. You'll also have some other capabilities here. I could possibly have a part that's made on multiple machines or multiple fixture stations on a machine. I've got one here that's multiple cavities in a mold, and you can do comparative reports like this that would show you, in this case, the same part. This is all, sorry, this is all feature OD, but this came out of cavity 1, cavity 2, and cavity 3. So it's separating the data automatically for you. You could also, by the way, create a dashboard that does the same thing. Cavity 1, 2, and 3, and this could update as fast as every 30 seconds. And there you see an end-on light for all 3 cavities. Would turn yellow if it's out of control, red if it's out of spec. Run charts, CPK meters, etc. You can also do things like this. This is 4 different machines running the same part. Status, again, all machines are okay at this point, but this shows you the CPK value over the last 100 parts of each of the critical 6 features here. Now there's also, as I mentioned, the ability to do reporting. So anything that you can display, you can either print right from the display that you've just done. Here's a print preview of that, and that's showing me now the data, showing me the data for cavity 1, and then the data for cavity 2, and the data for cavity 3 down here, and so on. You can also set up the reporting so that it runs automatically. Let's just go look at a report here. Choose a report, whatever the data group is. What's the time frame? This one was last year, could be last week just as easily. I'm looking at a stats summary report. I'm going to do a print preview right now, but I could just as easily send it to a file as a PDF or an Excel. I could also email it to somebody, whatever I might want to do. And most importantly, I think I could schedule it. If it's that Monday morning meeting report I was talking about, bang, that now will run every Monday morning at 12:01 a.m. and send an email to whoever is scheduled to get it, or just drop it in their folder if you just want the PDF in a location. So very, very powerful reporting tools, scheduling tools, etc. And then, as I mentioned, the other thing that you can do is do a full view. So you could have multiple plants all rolling their data up into one database that this tool was looking at, and it just went out and got the most recent data. It shows that my plant down here in Dallas is doing fine, but the one in Chicago's got a problem. I'll click into that plant. It will bring up a shop floor drawing, which any drawing you can put in here. It's just your graphic with the hot spots dropped in there. These two departments are green, good shape. This one's got a red flashing light. That department has 3 machines, and now I know that that is the machine with the problem. And now I know that spindle 1 on that machine is the only place that that's causing problems, and it's the bottom OD feature. I can look at that data and see that it's a low PPK. Let's go look at and analyze the data. I can ask for a variety of different charts, but I think this one gets me to what I'm looking for is what's the problem with that part. There's the last 50 parts plotted, and there it is, and it was Joe. He was running machine 2 and spindle 1, as we already knew. So this gives you the ability, once you're in the SQL Server, to start out all the way out here and drill down all the way down to a specific part, etc. All of this functionality that we've been talking about here in QC Calc in Enterprise Report Scheduler that's running out of the SQL database, all of that is available running. Sorry, I forgot to open my browser. I can run this using what we call QC Mobile, and it's going to refresh here in a second, or should. Yeah. Okay. And so now this just refreshed on the data. This is now a browser. There is 0 software running this screen display, and it just gets the data from the SQL database. So this could be on a PC, on as many different PCs around the shop as you want, and you can bring up data. You could bring up an actual live data. Maybe I wanted to go and look at that AB part that we were talking about before, and I want to look at the last 100 parts. Just like that, I'm getting real time. This is on my browser on my desk, or oh yeah, it's on my tablet or on my phone in my hand. I can go and look at the full view. I can look at that same map. Oh, there it is. There's the problem again. I can drill right in. And again, this is all browser driven, happening right on my phone or on my tablet, but it's getting the data from the same SQL database that ERS was doing as well. And this is our latest thing here. Okay. Any other questions?
I guess the only question I had is there a way for you to indicate the differences in some of the charts and analysis tools between QC Calc and Buddy? In other words, either show what's in Buddy that's not in Calc or vice versa. I don't know if maybe you did that or not.
Well, let's take a look here.
Just trying to get a separation, feel for the separation on the depth and the charting.
There are more charts available in QC Calc SPC than there are in Buddy.
Okay.
These are all the charts. So X bar and R, sigma, range, median and range, individual moving range, etc. And attribute charts. These are not in Buddy at all.
Yep.
All that's in Buddy basically are the the 6-packs and the simple histograms and run charts or X bar and R charts.
Perfect. Okay, no, that answered my question right there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very good.
Okay.
I don't have any other questions. Gene, Doug, do you have any other questions?
Get off mute. No, again, it looks good. I know I know Gene was in once before and presented it, material, and it looks good. So look forward to once again being able to see where we go from here to get to get a system implemented. So I appreciate you going through and explaining how it works.
No problem. Not a problem.
Very nice.
We're eager to work with you. I can come on site there and work with you. We can have one of our application specialists, just depending on timing. But we're happy to do that. And you know, if you want to run a pilot, you want a little bit of coaching to get that pilot going, just let me know when you want to do it, and I'll be there. So.
Excellent.
That's not a bad idea, actually, Greg. You know, as we're looking at trying to make decisions to just pilot, you know, and maybe even get some operator involvement a little bit too.
Yeah, sure. Excellent. Okay, Gene. Well, again, apologize for not having our full team here. We had them in mixed attendance, you know, earlier this week, so we knew it was going to be rough. But appreciate you again taking the time to give us another run through. It gives a little different perspective. Again, seeing it the second time around.
You bet.
I guess the only question is, in the recording, is it audio only recording, or is there any video?
Oh no, it's a full video. That's why it takes.
You got the full video. Perfect. I think the team will appreciate that, and if you're still recording, we'll hear my comments here. So we'll get this file out to them. Give me a link or what have you.
Yep.
At your convenience. Today we'll get it out to them, and kind of our action that I'm asking them is, you know, between now and through the holiday week next week to get through it, and then we're going to have a follow-up week after next.
Sounds good.
With our internal team, and we'll keep you appraised of our next steps.
Yeah, please do. And the offer stands. I'll come and help you out. So.
Excellent. Appreciate that.
Very good. All right, I'm stopping the recording now.